Not sure if this is bad news or just embarrassing news. The Ford F-150 Hybrid finishes last in reliability according to Consumer Reports, which just released a study for 2023 model and brand reliability. Does that surprise you? Brands and models were rated on a scale of 1 to 100. The F-150 Hybrid received a reliability score of 4. The Toyota Corolla Hybrid finished first with a score of 93. The F-150 Hybrid was part of a trend, according to Consumer Reports. Full-sized pickup trucks is the least reliable category with an average score of 30. That was the average score, and the F-150 Hybrid received a score of 4. The universe of people queried for the Consumer Reports study was huge, so before you start digging on Consumer Reports, what about the 300,000 car owners who were surveyed? Reliability for the 2023 models was based on data from the past 3 model years. The F-Series pickup has been the best-selling vehicle in the U.S. for 4 decades. Total annual sales often reach 700,000, and the F-Series makes up over 35% of Ford's total vehicle sales, so it is essential to Ford's success. The F-150 Hybrid is only one of several versions of the F-Series that are available, so maybe it's not bad news. Not the worst news, but still kind of bad. Reliability has been a huge hurdle at Ford. The Wall Street Journal's recent "At Ford, Quality is Now Problem 1" article points out that Ford's reliability problem may take several years to fix. In the meantime, it could cost Ford sales. The article also points out, quote, Ford took hefty charges against its earnings several times in the last decade to address issues, and it contended with bungled new model launches that led to delays, end quote. Ford is locked into a battle for the industry's future, primarily EVs. It has just launched the F-150 Lightning, which should be a best-selling model in the EV lineup because millions of Americans already own an F-Series vehicle, so it should be a pretty easy transition. The last place finish for the Hybrid in the Consumer Reports study shows how far Ford still has to go. So do you think this is more of a black eye for the public relations department, or is this a real issue? Should we be concerned about getting a 4 out of 100 for the F-150 Hybrid, or does it really matter in the big scheme of things? Love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Some say the 2004 through 2006 model years was the worst stretch in the F-150's impressive history. Specifically, 2004 and 2005 had low consumer and critical reviews for its problems with corroded gas tank straps that would ultimately cause it to detach and drag below the chassis and drag on the ground. The same issue was prominent for the 2005 model year with an added airbag defect that would inadvertently deploy, and drivers had a major recall and safety hazard. These 2 model years had similar issues that plagued customers, and since these are nearly 20 years old, there are plenty of other years to choose from that will save you some money on your purchase. Aside from the corrosion issues, they also had common problems with window and spark plugs. That's a lot of potential headaches for drivers to deal with. The spark plugs were caused by a faulty aluminum cylinder head design, and both model years were reported to have spark plugs breaking and causing engine problems on a routine basis. Especially during repair, there was a higher reported rate of engine damage for the 6-liter V8, 5.4-liter V8, and 6.8-liter V10 than in previous years. On top of that, both years struggled with basic window performance, where the power window control wouldn't register, or the window would fail to release from the door itself. You might be tempted by the low listing price, but these 3 model years will likely cost you more money than you'll save on the initial purchase price. By the 3rd year of having these issues, the 2006 started to show some promise, but most trucks never made it over 100,000 miles in their lifespan. When the powerhouse trucks from the 1990s were still on the road, most 2006 models gave out after just over 7 years. After a few years of fewer issues, the spark plugs again plagued the 2010 model. While a handful of years in this time frame had fewer issues, common coil failures caused the engine to misfire or not start entirely from this period. Luckily, this is one of the last years to report engine failure as a widespread problem. But the 2010 is definitely an F-150 model year to avoid. Plenty of issues with its sensory system. In one of the early years of the My4 touchscreen, drivers reported sudden unresponsiveness and situations where the backup camera never popped up while backing up the truck. It was one of the first iterations of smartphone compatibility. The 2010 failed to recognize phone connections, which can be a big headache today if you need to connect for calls or directions. The 2010 is a newer F-150 model year to avoid, with its reoccurring issues from prior generations, and it's also the first in a few from this era that had transmission failure as early as 35,000 miles. Model years 2015 through 2017 were incredibly high-selling model years, but we know they didn't always perform at expectations when looking back on this stretch. The three main problems reported were faulty door mechanics, transmission and gear shifting problems, and brake failure. In terms of engine and gear shift failure, these issues were reportedly more common when drivers were transporting weights weighing around 5,000 pounds when it became difficult to shift. For an F-150 that has a towing capacity over 10,000 pounds on most models, this is a problem. While the 2015 through 2017 model years were popular and sold well, there are a lot of issues from these years that should make you steer clear of this period. Brake failure again was reported several times, with several drivers claiming that their master cylinder needed to be replaced after their brakes suddenly stopped working. The dashboard displayed a low brake fluid warning, and drivers could not operate the brakes within minutes of that. While there were fewer reported complaints, the same problems were expected in the 2016 and 17, with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration receiving complaints of engine stalls for these two model years under 30,000 miles. So you might be wondering which F-150 model years are good. How about 2018 and newer? You can find plenty of used vehicles from these years that might look like a good deal, but keep in mind that they are still relatively young at 5 years old, and more problems might come up. A used truck for around 20 grand would be tempting for anyone, but going for a lower purchase price will probably cost you more money and frustration in repairs. The most recent generations might be more expensive, but they're roomy, well equipped for hauling and towing, and have great technology and entertainment options. One final note, if you are in the market for a new vehicle soon, great. Connect with your local dealership and price and test drive at least 3 different vehicles. A vehicle's strengths and weaknesses can only be discovered when you are behind the wheel. My reviews can be good, but you need to test drive these yourself. Visit quotes.everymandriver.com, select the make, model, and your zip code, and you'll get invoice pricing in your area on those vehicles. Shop smarter with price quotes at quotes.everymandriver.com.
Thanks for watching. Please click subscribe and give us a thumbs up. See you next time.